right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the June 22, 2023 meeting of the West Hampton Beach Village Planning Board. I would ask everybody to rise and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Before we get to the agenda this evening, some of you who are more observant than others may realize that we are a full board once more. Our wayward colleague, Mr. Neubauer, has rejoined us. We are all grateful for his presence and wish him continued good health in his recovery.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to the agenda.
So we call the agenda to order. The first application on the public hearing agenda is a site plan review for Richard Olivos, 82 South Road. They are on for the adoption of secret determination. Can I please have a motion?
I make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And they are now off the agenda until they come back from Health
We'll go
Department.
back down to the bottom until they come back to something new. The next application is number 2, Sunset West LLC, 87 Sunset Avenue.
Mr. Hume?
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
The applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road. Since our last discussion concerning this project, we had submitted a modified site plan. And as you recall, there was a change of an additional approximately 10 parking spots needed because of the use to which the building that's under construction is going to be put. So what we have done in the current plan is we have eliminated the Phase 3 building, which automatically absorbs 3 of those missing 10, and then we converted that little grassy knoll to 8 parking spots. So that will provide sufficient parking for the change necessitated by the proposed use for the facility. And we also identified on the map a location for a dumpster along the back lot line.
Any issues from the planning department?
These address the concerns.
Well, it was still the issue of the drainage space.
Right.
Where it is, will it conflict with the septic?
Right.
I think we'll have to find it to make sure it's, well, I don't know where it's put.
Yes, we'll find it and we'll make sure we don't put something else where it is. So.
Anything, Brad?
So we're still with the health department until the code is changed.
I'll have to update you on that.
But in
as well.
terms of the layout, the proposed layout, the removal of the building, the uses, we're good.
It's in keeping with what the trustees were looking for with the special exceptions. They're happy, although they have to actually issue a special exception. And the health department, as it stands,
The health department has been filed, and I know there's that detail is there, but I haven't heard.
Frankly, I prefer it with one fewer building myself, but.
Well, that's the message that we received, so.
So,
It worked
can,
out well.
The change to the parking lot, is it engineered? Like, do they have they dealt with the drainage to take grass to pavement and all that?
I think it probably, if it's there, we probably need to verify the calculations, but it's supposed to be building. So that
True.
would put in the roof drains, and I
Right.
don't think there'd be, probably very marginal difference. Certainly not enough big up to put it in one basin.
So the drainage that was originally planned for the site was done contemplating the building being there, not a piece of grass?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about it might trigger a look at the lighting plan, just because of the change in the code? I don't know if that's this was done, Jim, before the new lighting code was put in?
Okay,
And so it does force us to at least look at, the planning board has some discretion to waive compliance with the new code, but,
I mean, again, along the lines that we're actually reducing the load on we're not proposing a new building, we're proposing a subtraction of a building. The other building that's gonna house the use that we're here talking about was a building that was already approved, so.
Well, since you're
I
building
get that,
new-
but it's,
There could be an issue with the lighting, because what was the building that built down lighting? Now it's gonna be parking spaces that may need to have parking light. think my earlier comment said we need to confirm the lighting in that when the new building is going.
Right.
I talked about that.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at that, but do we need to look at it from the standard of we just need to illuminate these new 8 spots? or
You
do we need
really
to-
should look at it from the standard of, there's a new code in effect
Okay.
that's not grandfathered. And if you can't get it to be compliant, at least get it as close to being compliant as you can.
Will do.
It is a prominent site, so,
Oh, yeah,
you
no,
know, if
I
the
get it.
lighting is not up to
Right.
current codes, it really should be.
Okay.
Probably is, yeah, I imagine all the posts are in the right place and all that. Except for where the new where that building is not gonna go in.
Right.
That probably may be.
Okay, so I'll get the engineers to look at that.
Did they put the sanitary in?
Have they put it in yet? I don't believe.
Did they put it in when they built the original parking lot?
Not for this building, no. There's a whole new septic plan for this building, so.
Right, it would be big.
Yeah, yeah.
So that,
And also the code, the health department code has changed a little bit since then as well, so.
you know, what I'm thinking is that basin we don't know about. We may not know until we dig for the new
Right.
septic system, so we may, in the end, wanna prove it, not knowing where it is for saying, you know, we have to resolve that during construction. That may be the fairest way to do it.
All right. And if we dig and we find it, we'll have to move it and reconnect it, I guess.
Yeah, and we'll also have to make sure it's more than 20 feet away from the septic system, so
It's also gonna be part of their pre-standard health department, because their inspectors are gonna check distances to each.
Looks like a lot of stuff you can get done while you're in the health department. So we will, see you next when you have something to submit for us to consider.
To submit. Okay, thank you very much.
Before, does anybody want to comment upon this application at all? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hume.
Now be a time we could talk about 40 Main Street?
You wanna just ask your question quick?
Yeah, so we were hoping that it was gonna be on tonight. We found out today that the decision was not going to be actually rendered tonight. Had a conversation with the building inspector this afternoon, and I think, I don't wanna speak for him, but, we're hoping to start some of the site work. As you may recall from our earlier discussion, we're trying to get specifically the parking lot done before the next school year, starts. So every day that we can get is a better day. The zoning board, based on our request, did not restrict our ability to construct in the summertime. So we're hoping to be able to do some of that. Also, I guess a lot of the internal work could commence as well. I think, well, Brad can speak for his comfort level as to those.
The site, I don't know if that's up to the building itself. The building exists, it's not his building. There's a vast amount of reconstruction, retrofitting in that building. This board has in the past sometimes when something's solely internal, trying to button up the outside, they get started on the building permit minus the site work. Until that's such time that the site plan is resolution.
Yeah, I have no problem with giving them some leeway to work as long as the site details aren't, you know, getting to the point of being finalized. I think we're just really looking at like the lighting and to make sure that works and make sure the
Right.
landscaping works, like that's the details we're left with, so.
And,
If
yeah,
you wanna,
so we're
if you wanna give them
definitely-
some leeway to get, for Brad to give them a,
Well, Brad, you know what we're getting towards, you know, in terms of what we want and what we don't want.
but he needs your okay.
I
to-
know, just want to
yeah.
make sure that he knows what you're talking about, and Jim knows what you two of you were
Yes.
talking about, so everybody knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, I certainly have no problem with letting them.
I have no problem.
And certainly they get no CO until everything's all final anyway, so
Right.
that
We're
you
talking
still
about
always have
internal
that.
work.
Well,
And
we're
so-
talking about some site work as well, because I think the concern that's being expressed is the tail end stuff, the lighting, the drainage, that kind of stuff. by the time we're anywhere near close to doing any of those things, you guys will have hopefully rendered a decision.
Obviously, as long as it doesn't impose a burden upon, on the, outside the confines of the property in
No,
terms of
it
affecting traffic or anything of that
Sure.
nature.
I think the site is large enough, and since there is no summer school this summer, yeah, then, you know, this can all be contained on the property itself.
So we make a motion, we authorize.
I make a motion, we allow the building inspector to carefully supervise any pre-work prior to finalization.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dune.
Good night.
Good night. Are you leaving or are you staying?
All right, so the next application is number 332 Mill LLC, 32 Mill Road. And before, Aaron, you can go up to the podium, but before we get started, there's a lot of new faces in the room here, a lot of returning faces. We're just gonna go over how this is gonna work. There can be absolutely no shouting from the audience. You may not. Can't heckle, shout, do any of those things. If you wish to speak, everybody in this room will get an opportunity to speak to certain criteria of the application. You will go to the podium, you will state your name, you will state your address for the record. If you don't want to do that, then that's the criteria to speak publicly. Please do not shout, heckle, or any of those things. We have to take clear and concise minutes, and I can't do that. If you wanna speak, you will 100% get an opportunity, okay? We all on board?
I'm
Alright.
just gonna echo that. I will not tolerate any incivility, any disrespect. I'll clear the room if I have to. I know emotions are running high in certain quarters on this one. That's fine, but that doesn't preclude a civil, polite discussion about what your position is. And just to remind everybody, we are here to discuss solely the site plan modification proposal. That's all we're here to discuss. That's what our jurisdiction is. Ms. Finley, tell us what you have in mind.
So, in an attempt to sort of make this precise and be really clear, I wrote it out if that's okay. And thank you, my friend who told me I mumble and go way too fast. I will try to breathe in between and read it clearly. I just want to be clear that everyone has the background and knows exactly, because I know the board has changed. So I sort of wrote it all out if that's okay. It's only a page and a little, and it's in large font, so it shouldn't take long. After years of operating in this, and building two businesses involving the building department of the past, I will say I definitely misjudged and forgot that this current administration is in fact approachable. I should have based my decision, I should not have based my decision on the experiences of the past, and my interactings with boards and the village and the building department, and I should have inquired prior to doing any of this as to the proper procedure before moving forward with this venture. I did not consider my relocation of 8 seats to impact my operation in any manner necessitating approval from any agency, including this board. I have watched this village progress and grow over the last several years, permitting expansion, additional seating, outdoor dining, to mention only a few of the fabulous enhancements. I am not against them, I am 100% for them. I know everyone likes to point fingers, but I am for all of that, and I think that the village has progressed in the last few years in a absolutely fabulous manner. I was hoping to contribute to these enhancements with this new venture. I thought this new venture was actually in working with these new enhancements. After first meeting with the building inspector and reviewing my use for the space in question, it was determined that a change of use would be needed for the space to make it an official tasting room or alternative dining room. Immediately following that, I obviously applied to this board. I come to this evening applying for that use so that I can bring my property into full compliance. I know that there is really no such thing as immediate approval, and so in lieu of that, I am asking this board to consider temporary usage of the space for the purpose presented this evening so that my business can continue uninterrupted during this process. I'm hopeful that somehow we can come to a solution that works for everyone. I know that you have in your possession close to 100 testimonials regarding the space and its repurposed use. I would ask that you consider these emails along with the following benefits to the local community, both business and residents alike. In doing this venture, I now currently employ 4 additional full-time employees. I have calculated the added tax benefit and revenue as about $65,000 a year. We are ordering currently about $20,000 to $25,000 monthly from local vendors, including seafood, obviously not really meat, although to a degree, a little bit of produce, We have facilitated in excess of $20,000 donations to local charitable organizations. And we are in fact drawing in people not only from this community, but people from surrounding communities and people from traveling quite a distance to come to this. We've had nothing but positive feedback. I would really hope that you would consider all of this, as well as I was reading through the downtown revitalization proposal, calling for the revitalization of downtown to become a vibrant, quote, environmentally sustainable hub for the village and surrounding communities that provide year-round opportunities. We are open year-round. We have never closed. If we closed for 2 weeks in January, I think the last time we did that was over 4 years ago. We maintain our business often at a loss in the wintertime to keep a business open in this community. We are using what is literally specifically called out in the revitalization packet as using underutilized space for a better purpose. It is not a disturbance to anyone. It is not causing any problems. I understand it needs to be permitted. I understand the use needs to be changed. And I wish that I had thought that through in the beginning, but to tell you the truth, it did not. Seeing everything that was going on, I jumped on the bandwagon and was thrilled to get this done, and obviously I'm now applying in the backward. In anticipation, because I am not going to bring up, because as you said, you are the board and you're not going to hear everything. But in anticipation of what I'm sure will be some opposition, I would just like to refamiliarize everyone on this board, some of you which you were here when we originally built the place. When we originally bought the property to relocate Sydney's to Mill Road, I did my due diligence. I researched the zone I was purchasing in. I researched what the permissible uses were then and now, what existed, what we were allowed to do. I met with the building department back then. I pursued the venture that I am doing now, the store, everything that, because I did that due diligence. The one thing I didn't do that I didn't think was necessary at the time was interview my neighbors. However, back in front of this board, back in 2014, we made concession after concession for the neighbors. We increased our our fence sizes by 2 feet on the side yard and 2 feet on the backyard. We moved our dumpsters to give them another concession. We had the setbacks. We moved them. We gave up 2 parking spaces. We've actually caused not a great parking module now because of where the dumpsters are, but it was what this board wanted. And even to more expense, we split our exhaust fan system to reduce the noise in the neighborhood. We did all of that when we did not have to via code. We did it to be a good neighbor, and I am still trying to be a good neighbor. I have a very hard time understanding how taking what we were able to do, which is 25 seats out on the front lawn, doing dinner service 4 nights a week, Thursday through Sunday, and taking that operation, moving it entirely inside, reducing it to 8 people, and keeping it in a more remote, more secluded, behind closed door area can be considered a disturbance. I recently had a conversation with a very, very local resident who is not here this evening, and I've always used, the adage of, don't buy next to the airport, and he gave me an even better one. You don't buy a house next to the golf course and then complain that there's golf balls in your yard. Noise is going to travel. There is no shouting, there is no music, there is no amplified music. You are going to hear voices just like I hear them. I shouldn't cringe when my own customers walk out at 6 o'clock in the evening and have a conversation over the parking lot. And I shouldn't be in fear that in 5 minutes, the police are going to show up for a noise complaint. But it is constant. It is constant, it is unfounded. The police reports say there's no noise. As much as my neighbors should be allowed to enjoy their environment, I should also be able to enjoy mine. I should not live in constant fear that my own customers can't walk outside and be like, hey, good night, because that's gonna get a police phone call, and it does, and it's not an exaggeration. It is what gets a police phone call constantly. I know that there are other problems at hand here in applying for this, but I would just ask that you not let that portion of it sway your decision-making, because I have done concessions, and it is not a noisy establishment at all. I guess that is really it. I've made you some copies of things if you would like them. I don't know if they should just go to Megan so that she has them on hand.
For your hand in, so it's in the record,
Okay.
so that if anybody wants to come in and look at the file, it's
Do
not
you have,
here.
any questions for me on exactly what is going on so that,
Before we get the board going, I would ask the village planner and Brad to comment on where we're at in terms of the application itself.
Yeah, so,
Is this working? Yeah, okay. So I guess as Erin just stated, the application before you was precipitated from a violation. So the application itself is just the one dining room. It doesn't really talk about parking or sanitary or the floor plan upstairs. I mean, we know from the previous site plan approval back in 2013 or so, this was a storage room that is now a dining room. And I guess our question is just how does this, is this an additive use or is this, you say, taking chairs from outside or downstairs and putting upstairs? I think that is important so we can review what the actual impacts are. Is it 15 seats going to 23 seats, or is it 15 seats staying at 15 seats, and how that functions? So that's really, what is the site plan actually? What are we reviewing?
I haven't been here in a couple days, so I'm coming from and back here. Is there a site plan? I haven't seen one in any of the packages I had picked up.
So the submission, I believe, is just the application with a copy of another SLA application, I believe, and then the floor plan for the sushi suite, we're calling it. There's not a full floor plan or anything with the site in this submission.
So I'm not missing anything.
there was a site plan though.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there is a site plan that was submitted in the pack. I don't believe it's the final site plan, because it has the dumpster in a different location.
Okay.
But we have the full site plan that was approved downstairs as well.
May I just clarify one thing, because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
said storage, that was actually approved as an office. That was swapped out in April 2nd of 2014 and approved on the final. So it wasn't storage is in the interior room. It's just because it is a bone of contention with other people, so I just wanted to
And that
clarify.
does matter, so we have to know what the change is. If it's a change from office to this, or if it's a change from storage, everything is parked differently, so we have to clarify that, and we probably should have a complete floor plan.
I have them with me.
There's no change to the physical site plan proposed, as far as I understand. So what we just have to rectify regarding the site plan is the parking. We're changing the use from an office to a restaurant. Restaurant is calculated as, one space for every 3 seats plus employees, whereas the office is calculated at 1 per 250. That space is about 2 parking spaces. The restaurant would require more. So you could extinguish some of the existing seating down below. But we would need a site plan, or not a site plan, but a floor plan that shows what's being deleted or not used while the other is in effect. But the bottom line is we have 18 parking spaces, and we need to see how that's going to comply with the original site plan.
We have 16.
Hey.
It was required for 16 at the time, and we have 18. So we have two
The
inches
site plan
left.
I have on record says 18.
18 proposed, it was 16.24 or something like
Yeah.
that on the approval.
Right, but we built 18.
If I understand you correctly, this is somewhat simple from a floor plan perspective. Am I seeing this the right way? I mean, we're talking about change of use. We've got existing seats
Problem is right
and
now.
parking issue.
Right, we don't have
No,
the,
so I'm just wanna make sure I understand this the right way. I'm not,
that's correct.
that's what I just wanna make sure
There is a
that
path
I get it.
there is a path to approving this modification, but it
Right.
requires calculations of the parking and the septic and the use. We don't know, what's going on with the seating, and each seat has an impact on septic and an
Right.
impact on parking.
No, I
But
just wanna make
if someone
sure.
does that thinking for us and submits it so that we have something we can actually review, we don't have anything comprehensive right now to provide comments that you need an extra parking
Understood.
space or you don't, because we didn't receive that. So once we receive that, we can process this.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I understand what we're looking at here.
Brad, just for clarification as well, we don't do temporary approvals. Not of this type.
It-
There's no such thing as a temporary approval of a modification of site plan.
Right, so planning, there's really no temporary planning, and as we just talked about before, getting a head start on a permit or a clearing or a demo is practical, and we try to do that where we can. There's no temporary C of O. I can't issue a C of O without a building permit. I can't issue a building permit for the change without the planning board, because that's our code. So I can't skip over sections of the code. I can't give a temporary use while it's under planning review. It's one thing to be under construction or building or demoing or clearing, but I don't have the power to jump right to CO, because I can't issue that permit until it gets through this board.
It's not like the old outdoor dining where you could get that temporary seasonal. It's not the same thing.
The seasonal outdoor dining is a function that's within our code, that is, the trustees can issue, and they have in this case. And that nothing within this application impacts what's permitted right now. But that's outdoors, that's a temporary use that our code allows the trustees to issue after it comes through this board.
Anthony, you don't see a pathway, do you, to a temporary of any sort from a legal standpoint?
Not from this board, as long as it doesn't fall under the site plan waiver rules, which I don't see any way it falls under a waiver. So if it fell under a waiver, you could do that more quickly, you don't require all the full procedures, but I don't see how this type of change of use could ever fall under a waiver, not under your code.
So as I see it, your application is essentially incomplete. That precludes us from performing
What
our
portion
review
of it-
function.
What is it that needs to be to make it
Well,
complete?
from what I can gather, you do not show precisely what you have now versus what you're proposing. Are you adding seats? Are you swapping out seats? Are
I'm
they
swapping out seats, I've
Okay,
already.
well, they need to see that, and then the application we have right now doesn't provide that information. We also need to know what type of seats are, you could have, some could be dining, some could be other things. They need to know precisely what the use is on the floor, the number of seats. From there, we can figure out sanitary, we can figure out parking and other items. But based upon what we have so far, what we're being told is we don't have sufficient information to proceed forward at this time.
I'll also, what I said for the application before this also applies to this as well. This site plan predated the 2018 lighting code, so anytime a site plan is triggered, you're supposed to comply with the current lighting code, although this board has some discretion to waive that. But without looking at how compliant or non-compliant they are to the 2018 code, I don't know how you can make that call on whether to exercise discretion or not,
So we're gonna need a
I
lighting
think
plan
you'd need some
also.
information about how compliant the existing lighting is to the modern code that we adopted in 2018.
So you would need a whole new lighting plan as well now? To
Not
swap 8 seats
necessarily, if
from
your
downstairs
existing,
to upstairs?
if your existing lighting is sufficiently compliant to the existing code, you may be able to demonstrate that. But we don't have any information on your lighting, so.
You're not planning on adding any additional lighting, right?
Wasn't planning on it.
Okay.
Well, the
So
lighting
if
was
you-
put in as per the code in 2014. It's not the best lamppost, but it's what we were told we had to put in. I'm just looking, as you had said, I guess you don't have a floor plan, I had thought that there was.
We're not passing on the merits of your application at this point. This is a
No, I'm just trying to
This is a
figure-
procedural issue. We just, our
I'm just trying to
experts,
figure out
our
exactly what I need to
consultants
submit.
Our consultants are telling us that they do not have the requisite information for the planning board to undertake its review.
So you need to know the exact seating.
So
You-
first floor plan, how many seats you have on that floor?
Mm-hmm.
Full plan. Second floor plan, how many seats you have on that floor? Parking calculations that calculate the number of total seats versus the parking that you have on site. septic calculations that calculate the number of seats versus the septic you have on site. And
And if it's a swap of seats, how would either of those things change?
I think you need to show which spaces, how you gonna not use them. You know, if they were in a separate room and you just close that door, how are you gonna not use those seats? Which seats are you?
There are two different levels. The downstairs would be closed.
The whole downstairs.
There's an hour of overlap of market and upstairs. But we're not using the seats downstairs and we're not serving dinner.
so the floor plan would show 7 seats on the first floor, 8 seats on the second floor, and have a narrative that explains.
Okay, that's what I meant, said.
Yeah, we just don't have it. It's not, we have no issue. We don't have it. We don't
Okay.
have anything to evaluate. So seating impacts parking, impacts septic. We need to see that you conform to all of that, as well as the
But
current
if the
lighting.
narrative is explaining that we're swapping out the seats, then the parking and the septic remain the same, correct?
I don't know the terminology of swapping out.
I don't know that either. So you have to make the application. We can't tell you how to do it, but if your theory is some version of swapping, you have to explain that, how that works.
Oh.
Because right now you have a CO for 15-seat luncheonette, right? That's what the 2014 CO says. So you have to explain how you're making this work. You have one kitchen, right? So you're
Correct.
using that kitchen for both upstairs and down. You have to somehow make a case for how that works. That's all. You need to, we don't have enough information to,
It'll be the same thing that you provided to the health department. Because you'll have to submit your health department approval to this board.
Okay.
And if you have any questions or you're unclear, reach out and ask.
I have, I would
Yeah.
have brought more material. I would have brought floor plans and submitted them. But I provided what the modified site plan application asked for. Just to have. Oh,
All right. What are you smiling at? Does anybody from the public wish to address the board? I would ask the folks along that wall there, if you can relocate this way, so we can have the speakers line up against that wall and come up one at a time, and identify themselves as requested by Megan early on.
Here's a copy of what I'll be reading. There's also a site plan there with the parking calculations, as Aaron said,
Go to the podium.
making it an office rather than storage. Okay, hi, I am Kim Wolfersdorf. I live at 17 Beach Road, West Hampton Beach. I am speaking on behalf of myself, Becky and Adam McDade, Christina and Hugh Merle. We are the neighbors who are contiguous to this piece of property. So, this is not an issue of what is fun or popular. This is an issue of what is allowable and appropriate by current code in the Hamlet Commercial District. If I used my property to open a pot dispensary, it would be incredibly popular with certain groups of people. But my neighbors would not appreciate that, and it would not be allowable under code. The village requires that the neighbors be notified of these applications and meetings 2 weeks in advance, because we have a real stake in what is happening here. This property touches ours. We hear the noise, smell the smells, and deal with all the repercussions of being close by. This is why we are afforded the opportunity to make our case to the board. A quick look through the letters of support solicited by Aaron revealed that most were from people who don't even live in our village. Those who are within aren't even within a block. Why should people who live in Hampton Bays, Mastic, New Jersey, Connecticut have a say in what happens 60 feet from my house or 90 feet from the Merles? The McDades are 57 feet away. Our residential uses here are pre-existing. The Merle family is dating back to 1957 in this location. Aaron is the one who chose to come here and change a professional office into a commercial use. Then she expects to operate as if it's a B1 business district, and now acts surprised when we push back. The Hamlet Commercial Zone was created as a part of the master plan to be a transitional zone between the two. The intent was for this to be a less commercial, less intense, and 10 times more restrictive. If you look through the table of use regulations, you can see that. Our village board may want to change the code in favor of more business, and by that I mean the mayor and trustees, but they have not yet. They cannot selectively enforce this code when it's written down based on who they are friends with. Our current code and covenants on this property at 32 Mill Road are clear. Erin signed an agreement back in 2014 that said if she wanted to make any changes to her seating plan, which consists of 15 seats and 7 tables, she must first submit a revised site plan application to this board, and that any additions, alterations, or changes to the site plan shall require further site plan approval by the planning board, and undertaking any additions, alterations, or changes without planning board approval and the issuance of a building permit shall constitute a violation of the approved site plan, and the approved site plan shall be deemed null and void. Failure to enforce shall not be deemed to affect validity of this covenant. It is an indisputable fact that Erin has done all of these things. She has changed her seating plan without approval, made alterations and changes without planning board approval or permits. She also does not have approval from the Office of Wastewater Management, the Department of Health, or the State Liquor Authority. We believe that to be by design. She knew that this would not be permitted or approved. We pose that she intended to delay and drag this process out as long as possible while continuing to operate with cover from her friends in the village, to make as much money as possible this summer and deal with the consequences, if any, later. We have been through this before with Erin at this property. She has a history of doing things without proper approval and a little behind-the-scenes assistance. She used to violate her lease on Main Street to serve dinner just because she wanted to. She cannot claim ignorance at this point and publicly states her intent to just keep on operating in the Southampton Press and last week in court. She applied to create Taylor Sushi LLC back in March. So why didn't she come and apply for any of her permits back in March too? What about the businesses that take the time, money, and effort to do things the right way? Tonight, before the board, she is claiming to be swapping seats or giving up seats or whatever you will buy. It is a logical fallacy. If her intention were to swap seats, why not just use the downstairs dining area? Sydney's by day and sushi by night. That's a whole lot of expense and code violation just to swap seats. I believe that she will continue to use all seats available downstairs in addition to those upstairs as soon as no one is looking. Erin has submitted this application on June 2nd, excuse me. 1 week later, her own advertisement contradicts this swapping idea. She advertises through social media. On June 9th, she's hosting 10 people for upstairs sushi with ceramics downstairs. That's use of both spaces at once. Then on June 14th, 11th, and 18th, she's advertising Sunday brunch to be served inside or outside on our covered porch, and goes on to state brunch service will commence again in the fall, showing that she definitely does not have any plans to discontinue use of dining downstairs in exchange for upstairs only. At the end of that advertisement, she states that you can have a 30 to 15 person sit-down dinner party in her beautiful sunroom. That's on the first floor. Again, this shows that she has no intent to discontinue use of the downstairs dining area in favor of the second floor. What happens if she books a 30 to 50 person dining party while having 3 to 4 seatings of 8 to 10 people in the sushi restaurant on the second floor? Her CO and site plan do not allow for 30 to 50 person parties, yet she has been advertising them for years. She has also advertised that when her patrons are done with their 90-minute sushi experience, that they are invited to have cocktails on the roof deck. So that means there could be a full contingent at the sushi bar, several people drinking on the roof deck, and a private party on the first floor. Don't forget, there's 8 to 9 seats around the fire pit out front, and that's a nighttime activity as well. So there could be more people down there too. Plus the catering kitchen working on an off-site party. This is without a doubt expansion of her business. The new sushi restaurant is being advertised with hours of operation as late as 12:30 a.m. Back in 2014, Erin swore that her hours of operation would be from 9 a.m. to 10. All of this is included in the packet. Today I spoke with the head fire protection engineer where I work, who is also the head of the ADA committee on which I sit. He stated that the code requires a public facility to be accessible regardless of size. That's a state requirement. The village cannot loosen that requirement, they can only make it tighter. What would happen here if someone with a mobility issue made the required pre-approved reservation only to find out that they could not access the sushi bar? They'd have a lawsuit. That's what would happen. We also discussed the requirement for 2 forms of egress directly to the outside that meet code for width and rise over run for the safety in a building that isn't sprinkled. which I don't believe this one is. These items, along with the other safety issues about electric and structural integrity that I addressed in my letter of notice to the village, still go unanswered. That's because she has not submitted any design drawings by a registered architect or engineer to the building department or this board. There have been no inspections of the work done to convert this once bedroom, then storage office into a restaurant space. For the past 5 weeks, since May 17th, Erin has been operating the new sushi restaurant on the second floor in violation of a stop work order from the building department without a certificate of occupancy for the space. The stop work order and a keep out uninhabitable sticker were posted on the door to the second floor restaurant and ignored by everyone dining and working there. This includes Trustee Rubio and his wife. They dined there 3 times. This was visually verified by May neighbors, by his wife's own admission in her Facebook post, and her letter of support to this board tonight. We find this incredibly disturbing as it smacks of unethical favoritism. She has also made use of the roof deck as She has also made use of the roof deck as advertised. Has that deck been inspected for commercial use? Due to this expansion onto the second floor, we have experienced increased noise from the parking lot at later hours, consistent use of the roof deck with loud conversations and revelry into the night, public urination into the hedges on the Merles property. My neighbors had to watch through their living room window as a man faced them behind the hedge and urinated into their property. This is absolutely impairing the peace and comfort of adjacent properties. And aren't we entitled to the quiet enjoyment of our properties? The surrounding homeowners to Taylor Sushi are being harmed directly to their property and their property values, as well as harmed personally by being robbed of the quiet enjoyment of their homes. This drama started with a report to the building department. We were then told that due to the business hours of that department, we had to call the police for enforcement regarding continued violations. Hugh Merle and I spoke with Brad Hammond and Chief McManus in person and via email about this situation several times. We are not wasting their time. Those violations are documented and will be used in court next week and potentially in other matters as well. Our calls to the police have been split between the violation of the do not occupy order and noise. Unfortunately, though I can swear here before you that the disturbance is very real, they must be able to see the police approaching from that upper deck because it stops when they arrive. My neighbors watched this happen 3 times in one night. On the last call, my neighbor got so angry, she waited on her front porch to be interviewed by an officer, but they never came. This is incredibly frustrating for us and them. Both departments have done what they can, but enforcement on someone so desperate and defiant is nearly impossible. She is making a mockery of our code. This will likely lead to legal action and a court proceeding. Given the problems we have encountered seeking enforcement now, I can't imagine how a seat swapping or forfeiture could be enforced in the future. She might comply with the idea for a little while, but I guarantee you we will wind up back in the same enforcement death spiral. Beyond that, how many uses are going on in this building? First, she has the catering company that operates at night and was the biggest problem with this business until now. They create such a racket unloading after an event and then party on the roof deck late at night. Second, she has the market and cafe, which we had been coexisting peacefully with for the past few years. Her application calls out an SAT prep company using one of the offices on the second floor. That would be a 3rd use. And now, this new venture she's calling Taylor Sushi, that would be expansion into a 4th use. In March, she applied for an LLC in that name. It would be a completely separate entity. We contend that she does not have the adequate parking for all of these uses by current code. Current code dictates a stricter use of 200 square feet rather than the old 250 square feet. And by my calculations, which I have included for Megan, the 1st floor retail requires 2 seats. 1st floor dining, 5. 1st floor employees, 7. 2nd floor offices, 4. 2nd floor dining, 3. And by her own admission this evening, 2nd floor employees are 4. That comes to a total of 25 seats. There are 18 available. We have also witnessed, both Hugh Merle and I, employees parking in the village parking across the street and walking across to their new employment. If this board did deem her site plan null and void, and she had to meet current code, none of this would be possible. She does not meet her required rear yard requirements. This means that we are all closer together than Hamlet Commercial calls for. There are 4 parking spaces forward of the building. This would not be allowed today. She exceeds the 60% lot coverage by 2,000 square feet. That would cost her another 4 parking spaces along with the 4 in the front yard. And the building is over 3,000 square feet. I realize that these are all grandfathered in. They do, however, mean that she is expanding the use of a non-conforming site. Any expansion this board allows now will also be grandfathered in, and we will have to live with the repercussions for decades. My neighbors and I have all talked. We have no plans of leaving anytime soon. We have been made aware that Erin, though, is in foreclosure on her home. Her financial problems,
All right,
I have a copy of it. Okay, fine.
Kim, I'm not sure that's really relevant to this. It's just, hey.
I can put it in the
We do not
file.
talk to each other in here. We talk to the board from the podium.
Fine.
I'm just saying.
Her
if you
financial
want-
I'm
excuse me.
almost done.
If you want to have a conversation amongst yourselves, please take it outside. Thank
Her
you.
financial problems are of a paramount concern to us. She has placed this business up for sale once before, and logically may do so again. If she sells to a new owner with deeper pockets and grander ideas, what then? Is the village going in the business of propping up failing businesses at the expense of homeowners? Do we have to come here every year and fight a new use at this location? We are begging this board to take some immediate action, stop the use on the second floor space until these issues are resolved, and then please take meaningful action to mitigate this nuisance permanently and irreversibly for us. Whether that is the removal of the second floor restaurant, removal of the roof deck and planting of mature evergreens along the Merle property, or making the covenants mean something and bring the site plan closer to compliance with current code to prevent more expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a lot of what you were discussing and talking about appears to be more, a lot of it seems to be dealing with more what's going on in a different venue. That's really more of an enforcement issue. That's not really our jurisdiction. So just want that to be clear for everybody that, some of this stuff, although informative, doesn't necessarily fall within what we're discussing. We're discussing the application that is before us, and that's it.
But you let her keep talking.
If you wanna talk, you
I'll
can,
talk and then I'll leave. I don't really care.
then take the
If
podium.
you, then take the podium,
I'll
identify
leave.
yourself.
You let her keep talking
Take the
when she
podium,
wasn't supposed to.
take the podium.
Roy Daly at 127
Wait,
Beach
wait.
Road. I know almost
What?
everyone involved here.
Yeah,
Roy,
time.
we're just gonna stop for a second, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Guys, I said it at the beginning, please, as much as you don't respect each other, we have to be kind, polite, please don't interrupt me, and make a clear record. Erin, I will give you a copy of everything that she provided for you, because I know that's where you're going, I can read your mind. We can't do this, you can't shout from behind me, it's
I
not safe.
apologize.
It's not safe, okay? We can't do this, we cannot shout. I said it from the beginning, you might not have been here. If every single one of you wanna speak, you will get an opportunity to speak. We all don't wanna be here. So the more I have to stop this meeting to tell everybody to stop, the longer this is gonna take. So please, I just ask everybody to just be respectful of the board who's sitting here volunteering their time. It's not easy, none of us wanna be here, but please be respectful, okay?
Roy Daly at 127 Beach Road. Went to high school here, lived here ever since. That was, and I know everyone involved. You should have stopped when it became personal. You should have stopped it when it was outside the application. You are wrong. And I
That's-
want that on record.
Okay, that's your opinion. I've always.
It's not an opinion. It had
Sir,
nothing to do
sir,
with the application.
I've been here for quite a long time on this board. I've always.
And I was on the zoning board for years.
I
You could
know.
ask many people in this
And
room.
I've always
We
given-
stopped that rhetoric when it was going on.
Please
It-
lower your voice.
You don't.
I have to lower my
You-
voice.
you-
Oh, excuse me.
One thing I learned a long time ago when you're sitting on a board is you don't get anywhere by yelling at the board. So you're not winning any
I
points here.
have
And
nothing to lose with the board.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I've always given everybody an opportunity to say what they want to say. I've never shut anybody down. When it got to a point where I thought it was getting a little bit too much, I did interrupt. I did ask her not to go down that road. Everybody can respectfully disagree whether I should have let it go or not. But that was my call. If you disagree, I respect that. I'm not clairvoyant. I'm
I
not
disagree, and I
perfect.
hope there's action taken by Aaron and David against you and the people that made that comment.
This is a public hearing, sir.
Listen,
It's the hallmark of democracy. Things get said that are stupid, but that doesn't mean that the.
and it should have been corrected by the board. That's all I have to say.
I'm not here to defend Ms. Finley anymore. I'm here to favor her. She's have every opportunity to respond to whatever she wants to respond to. that's what this whole conversation's about. Nope. Line up. You gotta line up on the wall.
Yeah,
One at a time, please.
We'll just take one at a time.
You're
When
next.
we
You're
see you
next.
concluding, Stacy,
Aaron,
you go.
Aaron, just so you, I think I'm just gonna let everybody have their opinion. You wanna get up and say something in response
I'm
to
asking
whatever
you to
you
stand
heard,
in the
you
back.
more
I
than
don't want you
welcome
standing behind Megan.
Yeah, I
Just
don't
go
know
stand in the
what
back of the
we're
room.
asking.
Please.
Sure.
Just
I know
please.
that he was here and that she represented
Back of the
herself
room.
as speaking for him, which is fine, he is present.
Please.
I do not believe that the board should be accepting anything that she's saying on behalf of the McDades, because they are not here, and unless you have something in writing that she's their representative.
Would a text message do?
No,
Adam?
no, it's where, everything's already in the record. Okay, we're taking it all in, okay? Sir,
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Andrew Perrell. I live full-time in Quogue. I visit West Hampton Beach every opportunity I can when I can avoid driving all the way to Riverhead in order to get what it is that I need.
Can you just speak up into the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm fully in favor of Sydney's and what it plans to do. I contribute to the community in Quogue quite fulsomely. In addition, I'm a member of the fire department there. I've inspected the premises. I would take issue with a number of the comments that were made vis-a-vis the fire safety of the space that's being at issue here. Nonetheless, it appears as though there are procedural missteps which have occurred. I'm a partner in the law firm of Troutman Pepper. I will take as an accommodation on behalf of Aaron Finley and Sydney's. We will prepare the appropriate documentation and resubmit. What I would ask is if we can be put on the agenda at the next possible meeting to be heard.
we do not, this case will remain, is on the agenda for this evening. It will not, we don't.
I'll submit to
We
the
don't
court
hold
for request.
over. We will reinstate a case back onto the public hearing agenda when we receive the material 10 days before the next meeting.
Fair enough, that's good enough.
Just to clarify, if you get things in by July 2nd, you will be on the July 13th meeting, which is our next conflict.
Wonderful, I'll talk with my associates and see if they can make that. I do appreciate the time, to the point that the gentleman, I believe, did he leave? No, there he is.
I was asked to move.
Oh, okay. To the extent that there was hearsay and other ultra-virus statements made, I know they're on the record, but they should be given the appropriate discount when you all review the minutes of this. Thank you very much.
I appreciate what you're saying, but this board does not operate under rules of evidence that we're both familiar with.
Thank you.
So it's given the weight that it's due.
Fair enough.
Hi, I'm Stacy Rubio, 244 Mill Road. I was a person mentioned from Kim during her piece, and I just feel it fair for Rob Rubio, who is a trustee here. Number one, yes, I am friends with Aaron and David, have been for years and years. But as far as use of the sushi suite, Rob Rubio has never been there. Okay, so just before you continue with your rhetoric, I just would like that put for the record. Okay?
Thank you.
You don't like sushi? You knew it.
Does anybody else wish to be heard on the application at this time? I'm not sure if that's a yes or a no.
Hi, Carl McDonald. I live on 2 Fairview, West Hampton. I just wanted to say that I'm all for anything that expands the dining experiences and the nightlife in this town. I don't live next to it, that's true, but I did own an establishment in this town, and the support from the government in the town was exceptional, and without COVID, I'd probably still be there. So I just wanted to say, I'm pretty sure that most of the residents here really appreciate any additions that we can do to the dining establishments in the village. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Ann DePiro, 17 Liberty Street. Hi, I am the person who operates the tutoring and test prep company. Some of you actually know me. I've tutored a lot of your kids right at 32 Mill. And I just wanted to speak on two accounts that, first of all, I'm as local can get. I was born here. Dr. Merle stitched up my head. I still have a scar right here in 1973. I went through the schools here and have moved back, and now I both live here and operate a business here. My business requires quiet, and I work specifically after school hours because that's when my students are available. So I work in the evenings, sometimes into the night, and I work weekends. And my office is literally congruent to the deck, which is then congruent to the sushi suite. And I was concerned that there might be noise, and I'm really happy to report that I am there all hours, and I've experienced no undue noise. We have very quiet test taking, very quiet classes. I've had no problems. I hear no music. I hear voices at a speaking level, which I fully expect from a business. I rent my business spaces in the business district. It's no undue noise. It's no problems. I have my windows open. I just haven't experienced anything, and I'm there late at nights as well. So I just wanted to speak to the fact that, that there was an allegation that people were writing in from far away and who weren't there. And I am there. I do not live there. Actually, during AP season and finals, I do live there. But I haven't experienced any noise problems. I haven't experienced any smells. I haven't had any problem with parking. It's sort of been a non-issue. And second of all, I also wanted to speak to what the gentleman before me just said, that as a longtime local and as a current local, I really support the growth of local business and more to do here. For a long time, our village was just real estate offices. And while I support those as well, you can't base life on real estate offices. I want restaurants. I want things for kids to do besides just come and study. I want activities, wholesome activities. I support more restaurants, even more bars. It's a business district. That's what it is. It always was. Dr. Merle had a medical office there. My best friend, Stacia Hurley, was in that house, grew up in that house. Her father had a law practice. And I understand I can't speak to different zoning and different, I don't know about different uses, but it's always been, it's across from the municipal parking lot. It is a stone's throw from Main Street. It is a business district. So I support bringing more jobs, having more activities, having more things to do, and especially when there aren't, as far as I've been able to discern, any noise or smell issues or any safety issues, then I'm just all in favor of it. So I just wanted to speak to it as someone who is in a unique position to talk to what was there. And I'm happy, by the way, to answer if anybody wanted any more information about that, as someone who's literally boots on the ground and does not have a vested stake in the restaurant or the sushi suite itself. I'd be happy to answer any questions or help in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at this time? Just so you know, when we do get the supplemental submissions we've been asking for, there will be more public hearings. You can always submit written comments at any time if you cannot attend for whatever reason. We encourage the input, we encourage the participation. The more information we have, the better decision that we can make. And none of this was passing on the merits of Erin's application at this point. We're really in a procedural hold right now, pending the receipt of the appropriate information. That's kind of where we're at. Does anybody on the board have anything to say?
Before we go on, just so I don't have to keep replying to the emails, Erin, if you want to keep sending out the mass mailings, time people comment, you're welcome to. I mind, but I don't mind. If you could just make it clear for everybody in this room, if you have not submitted anything in writing, just like when you have to go to the podium and state your name and address, you have to do the same thing in writing, because sometimes your email's just a bunch of letters or numbers or whatever the case may be, and if you want to be made part of the record, which I can assure all 100 of you that emailed me daily since 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Your emails have been distributed, they have been collected, they will continue to be collected, but without your name and address, we can't make them part of the record. And when you want to keep blurting that out on social media, please just include that part. Thank you.
Okay, so if we get what we need by July 2nd.
Can I come back up?
Absolutely, I'm sorry, that's right. I did tell you you have that.
I just want to make sure we're clear on exactly what you would like, because I don't want to do this twice. You would like a narrative explaining about what we're doing with seating as well as floor plans showing the seating, and if the seating is a swap, you don't need a new parking or septic calculation, because it would be the same?
Come in and look at the signed map, because it's not the same one you submitted, so
Okay.
slightly, let's start, the starting
So-
point should be the last approved plan, and then that would be a lot easier for you to then.
That would be the as-built site plan?
It's the site plan that was approved back in 2013, 2014. It's slightly different from the one you submitted in this submission.
So maybe I can just take a picture of the notations on that one, so I know what I'm looking in my file for.
If you have any procedural questions, you can email me at planner@westhampton.org.
Okay.
Please don't put it on social media.
As I
though.
understand it, you
Specific
now
parking
have
and
volunteer
sanitary.
legal counsel,
No.
so that could help you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, pending receipt of further information, this matter will be removed it's off the public hearing agenda for the moment. But if you get the stuff in July
So
16th.
that, I wanna bring that up to you guys. July 2nd is July 2nd is a Sunday, July 3rd, we are open, and it is Monday, but not a holiday. So if you can get it in by July 3rd, please, guys, can we give
Yes,
a legway to July 5th?
given the presence of the holiday, we'll give it a little, we'll give some
I don't know
leeway.
if I'll be here on July 3rd, so we'll give you till July 5th on 9 AM. That work?
You wish papers by 9 a.m.?
On July 5th, yeah. July 2nd is a Sunday.
And that will give our consultants, as well as the board members, at least a week to look it over before we have to come back.
If you have it digitally, you can email that. We will need hard copies, but if you send it a digital file, that, it has to just be able that we can review it, blow it up, whatever the case may be. You can email one, I'll disseminate it digitally, and then we need a paper copy, we need 10 paper copies for the file. But if you have the digital copy before the 2nd, email it to me. This way also, if there are neighbors or people that want to see a copy of it, they can't come in. The digital copy we email it out to them, they have it accessible on their computers, and then bring me the hard copies and I'll disseminate those as well.
Best way to figure out what you want is a phone call. Okay, all right, there's nothing further on this application for the moment. We'll move on to, number 4, Osmar Properties. If you wanna leave, we'll stop talking for the moment, so you guys can clear out, and we're
Do you believe we need professional service?
Hugh! Hugh! One second, I wanna make sure we have a quiet room before you start. I wanna hear what you have to say. Please take it outside if you're not here to.
You can start handing that out, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, hand it
Yeah.
out. Let's wait a few minutes. Why not?
I had 6, Greg got one.
I saw this on the
This is what he emailed us.
Yeah, we're going to visit some.
Okay. Good evening, Board. As you see in front of you, I own that building since 1993. The building was built in 1890. It went through extensive renovations, redoing the plumbing, the electrical, foundation, the whole thing. It's a kind of a love-hate relationship, but it happens. I'm proposing 3 parking spots in the back. As you see, I got the sewer in finally after 30 years and 8 months. And I have a 6-inch slab with heavy-duty reinforcing in it. And I want to put some permeable pavers in the, right outside because initially, well, there was a mistake made by the contractor who, they back-pitched the blacktop into my property. I have pictures if you want to see them on my phone. So to alleviate that, I raised the grade there, and I put some blacktop there to prevent the water from going in. So I can now say, pick up the water. The water won't be pitching into my property, and the water that would, any water that would come out of my property would be absorbed by the permeable pavers. And let me see the and the sewer pit, or the grease pit, is I paid additional money to have it larger than it's supposed to, so I could have this application for more seats.
Well, what precisely is the expansion? 'Cause, you know,
The expansion
I'm trying
is-
to visualize it.
The
That's all.
expansion is in the front. If there was, it used to be a jewelry store. The jewelry store is right next door to Ivy on Main, which is the restaurant. We're gonna have an opening in the front of the space, and the side of the space as the people come in, the front door of Ivy on Main, so they can access that. Becomes like a quieter room than having them at the bar area, let's say that front, the initial area where it was. If you see this hatched area on top of the building, that's where it's going.
Do you have a floor plan?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry?
Do you have a floor plan?
That is, well, the floor plan was submitted prior. This is just for this is the floor, not only the floor plan was submitted, but this is for, the additional parking, so he can open up. I mean, here we are in the season, and I'd like him to open up and, have some seats in there.
Yeah, you know, I haven't seen a floor plan. I mean, maybe I missed it.
It's in the application.
It's in,
small.
oh, is that where it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Showing the 15 seats in there.
Is there
Yeah, I didn't look through
a
that.
change to the exterior?
I'm sorry, none.
Other
Matter of
than
fact, on the exterior, what I did in 1994 was, there was molding on the top, and if you look at the old pictures from the Historical Society, I sent the molding out to a place in Canada to fabricate the molding to precisely what it was, and they did it in a polymer. So if you look at what the building looked like in 1890 or 1900, it looks the same exact as it does now, except for the stairs, because they raised the grade in the street.
But in terms of what you're proposing, there will be no change from the street.
None at all. Are you kidding? I love the building the way
I'm
it looks.
just asking.
I'm sorry, I'm emotional about it.
It's okay.
You know, my wife liked that jewelry store.
Well,
It's fortunate it's
well,
gone.
listen, you should thank me for not having it there now.
Yeah, really. What's wrong with you?
Brian, anything from your perspective?
So the paper portion of the, I talked to the trustee and the mayor, and they basically agree, are okay with that work. We'll probably do some sort of highway permit, even though it's, because it's village property on the back there, but there was an issue with the pitch, and I think everyone was in agreement, they like the idea of permit. As for the changing the, change of use comes before the board, it's modification of site plan, so dry retail, so we get into seats, as we just talked about in the previous application. So think we have dropped sidewalk there, if I'm not
Right, yeah,
mistaken,
that, with the new construction that went on, you got the planter there, and you got the new sidewalk kind of.
Curbing is
That would
there,
be,
yeah.
that would be extensive as far as that would be concerned.
Well, unless you moved some of your dumpsters around,
Yeah, I could do that also.
you might be, Ron, if you moved some of those dumpsters around,
Maybe, just,
The way to, well, in a practical sense, you have.
maybe all three were head in, you didn't have the dumpsters over on the left. Maybe, you could move the parking space one over a little bit, with enough room to get out the driveway. I don't know, it just doesn't look like that third space really works. I don't even think moving the dumpsters around. But like I said, if you pulled that island back and opened that up, then it would work. But the village is just put sidewalk.
yeah. So, I don't think it's coming out.
No, I don't think that's gonna go.
I just don't see how it would work.
Well, in a practical sense, what we're trying to achieve there is trying to eliminate, creating 3 spaces to eliminate, let's say, people, let's say, even work in the building, to use that spot. So in reality, we're giving the town an extra spot, even though it's kind of a funky design where you're saying that you can't get out, but if you're the last person leaving or you're working there, you'll be able to get out.
That's true.
That's where we were going with this.
If the number 2 space was.
I'm sorry?
If space number 2 was unoccupied, then I think you'd get out.
And I don't think we really even want the public parking in those spaces, it's really.
No.
So this is employee parking only.
Well, employee and owner.
I did,
What do you require, what, 1 seat for every
Every three, 1 parking, 3 seats.
plus employees, so then you take the employee count out of the public parking, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Do you see where I'm going with this, Dave? If they're saying they're dedicating 3 spaces to the employees, and he says he has 5 employees, right, can you take the employee parking out of the public count? And I shouldn't be making this application for him, so I'm just gonna stop. Do you see where I'm going? Does anybody?
Yeah, well, that's, well, it could work that way too. I mean, it's very flexible with that. I mean, you know how it worked when it's crazy there. I mean, you can get a 4th car in there behind it. I mean, as an owner, I mean, if I'm there and I need a spot, like on 4th of July, I would pull in there. I mean, it wasn't designated and stuff like that, but it's crazy here. So if we can put 4 cars in there, why not? To eliminate give the town 4 spaces for people that need them. It's just, it kind of works the way I see it.
There's
You
no,
gotta get a sports car.
there's
Well,
no
yeah, the
dimensions
sports car
on
and the
these
motorcycles too.
either.
Brad?
They should fit by.
I have a
Or
question.
they might even be able to
Is
be
there-
squeezed
Is there
a
anything
little. I don't know, it
restricting the,
seems
making
like a
that
weird design.
apron, I'll call it a curb cut, wider?
I don't think the trustees really wanna get into, we just did it as part of the sewer project, rebuilding the parking
Right.
lot. I know Mr. Salty was out there talking to them through the project, and like, we tried to give them as big as access as possible.
So making it
Properties don't
wider.
have access to these at all, so I don't know that they wanna get into.
So
tearing
that's
it up and stuff.
not an option to try to make it a little wider.
and if,
I'm just asking the question.
if
to
you,
see
and
where it falls.
if the motivation is to keep it, I mean, just looking at it without knowing it, I just assumed it was employee parking.
Well,
I didn't, I don't know who in the public would think they could park in there anyways, because
Yeah.
it just,
Well, I
it
agree.
screams private parking lot, you know?
Especially with the signs up.
And it should be, so they can service the dumpsters, there shouldn't be parking
Right.
back there with the dumpsters.
Pickup is probably important.
So
Yeah.
it should probably, if the board were to approve something, we should probably have signs that says employee parking only, this way they're able to move it for service.
That's, I would want the this open to the public anyways, you're just begging for trouble.
It's new to us.
Do you want, Ron, do you want him to see if he can reconfigure these better, or, I mean, it's a weird layout.
I don't think there's any way you can get 3 parking spaces without it being some kind of employee, with some acknowledgement that if number 3 needs to get out, number 2 will move his car or somehow let him get out. I mean, it's just, I don't see how that space really works.
Business hours only,
Yeah.
should do something along those lines, people would work.
The other thing is if the space 1 and 2 are occupied, somebody really can't get in. So then it's no longer usable.
Yeah, the employees are gonna have to be instructed to pull into 3 while it's empty.
Correct. In other words, everybody would have designated spot.
Right. That's a good idea.
Yep.
That'd work.
Plus, it's the owner needs to be there all the time.
Or if you're first in, that's where you go.
Yeah.
Everybody in the building's gotta know that.
Well, they would, believe me, they would.
I bet they will.
So do we need anything more than what we have, or?
I don't think so.
No?
It's just a decision to be made as to whether, it's a little unusual because we go by what the code says. Accessibility and all that. This is the first time it's come up that the board would allow some flexibility in this special circumstance.
I think if we keep it restricted to employees, owners of the premises, who are gonna know what they're getting themselves into, pretty much, I think we could work it on this particular point.
Great. Does that have the same ratio of seats to parking? Or do you get more seats because it's employees?
Well, you're slick.
Well, I was asking.
It's a nice try.
You be happy you're getting a 3rd parking space. Be content.
I am, we're very content.
All right. So,
We good?
do we have enough to do a decision
Thank
at
you,
the next
gentlemen.
meeting, or?
You can keep the plans.
All right. Is anybody from the public wish to be heard on this?
Do you wanna ask about, Dave, do you wanna ask about, can he start, put a permit in and things like that? What?
Well-
Do you wanna ask if he can put a permit in to start, if they can give Brad the approval to start the work? Waiting on a decision, cause he's not gonna get a decision until July 13th. But as you saw previously, you can ask permission to maybe start.
As a special exception?
It's not,
What's the work that needs to be done?
the conversion.
I'm sorry.
The interior work.
The interior work.
Right, the interior work.
Yeah, the interior work that needs to be done is essentially flooring, paint, light fixtures, and then eventually cutting the doorways in from the existing restaurant into the new space.
So it's all interior work.
Yes.
All right. Counts.
I don't care. So,
Brad?
so if it's practical, I defer to Brad, but I don't know if it's practical. That's up to him.
Yeah, flooring and finishes are, it's not usually a planned component, so we'll work it out.
Okay.
But no seats put in,
Mhm.
no occupancy, no service, you never go into space unless you have a CLO.
Understood.
So what we're going to do is we're gonna give you the discretion to enforce the appropriate bounds of this work before the approval is issued. So, do I have a motion to
We can
that?
have a nice meeting.
Yes.
Make a motion, we allow the building inspector to monitor the progress on the permitted interior work.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, please, so Britton does not kill me, even though she left. We need to approve 4 sets of minutes. I'm gonna start with April 26th. We had a full board. Can I please have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next set of minutes are May 11th, 2023. The only absent member is Ralph Newbauer. Can I please have a motion?
Make a motion?
All in favor? Aye. Mr. Newbauer
I
abstains.
recuse, yes.
May 25, same.
I recuse.
I make a motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
And June eighth, same.
Okay, I make a motion?
Recuse.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to close?
Motion to close?
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
For an exciting meeting.
Draft